Good morning, everyone. Today I will talk about the modern design of a European regional newspaper, and the book chooses a German newspaper, Feuilleter Zeitung, as the example. Firstly, I will give a brief introduction of Feuilleter Zeitung. It is a regional German daily newspaper for the city of Feuilleter and its region, the east of Hesse, and it was founded in 1874. In 2004, the paper was redesigned and began to use a dialogue pagination system for layout. Now, the current design of this daily newspaper is based on the style book of Feuilleter Zeitung. Journalists and editors use it as instructions to design the newspaper. Secondly, I will talk about modular layout. The style book requires that all articles should be built in the form of rectangle. You can see it from the example. All stories on this newspage are in the form of rectangle following the red borders. Apart from that, the style book also gives 10 possibilities for combining photos, text, and headline. One thing is to address is that the first 7 possibilities are required to have at least 5 lines of the text below or above the picture. For the first and second ones, picture integrated in the article between the headline and the text, or below the text, following red borders. We can obviously find that the text wraps the picture from 2 sides. While in choice 3 and 4, when photo integrated in the article, the picture should be wrapped from 3 or 4 sides. And next are the 5th and 6th ones. It has some limitations when using them. Placing the picture above the headline and the text can only be used for the top of the page, while the other can be only used for the bottom. Compared with choice 5 and 6, the 7 ones, placing picture between the text and headline is more commonly used. According to the style book, placing picture next to the text and the headline as an alternative for a standalone picture is used to combine a good picture with short text, and in this case, the accompanying text, headline, and subhead shouldn't be wider than 1 column and not longer than the picture itself. The picture should be at least 2 columns wide. The last 2 possibilities are picture next to the text under the headline and picture before the text under the headline, but combination 10 should be used in case of absolute necessity, because very often readers can't find the beginning of the text. So if using combination 10, journalists and editors should make sure the text and the picture are on the same level. The third section is hierarchy of stories. Hierarchy of stories is created with the help of headlines, pictures, and positioning on the page. The main story has the largest photo and a headline in the biggest size. Like what the picture shows, the story on the left is the most important story in this page. Fourthly, the style book talks about the use of white space. Since 2004, Feuilleter Zeitung has been using the white space to separate articles instead of lines. The width of a headline should be 3 to 6 mm shorter than the corresponding article, and it must be 2 empty lines between a picture, image, graphics, and the following text. Then comes to color and typography. This section can be divided into 4 parts. The first part of it is color in the newspaper. Green is used when singling out information. Light gray is background color for teaser boxes in the front page and front pages of sections. Sand color is background color for info boxes, tables, text frames, or pictures without article, editor opinions, and comments. On the right side, it is an example of how to use these 3 colors. The second part of it is color of typography. The body copy, the headlines, and other elements of articles are always in black, but when type in color is presented, it uses bold typeface, a bigger size, and with captured words to create contrast. The black color of the body copy with the same background of info boxes also can provide good contrast. The third and fourth part of this section are typography of body copy and typography of headline subhead. For body copy, Feuilleter Zeitung uses stone serif 8.75 and 9.25 points If there are editorial comments or opinions, the size of body copy is 9.25 points with sand background, as well as cut out picture of the author. For secondary typography, there are two type families including Franklin for sans serif and slim bar for serif. The table, which contains the number of columns, the size and length of headlines and subheads, is the instruction to guide journalists and editors how and when a typeface is used. The book also refers to special headlines and briefs when talking about typography. Headlines for culture section are set in a different typesetting named slipbar italic because reviews in culture section are subjective, so it requires a different typesetting to distinguish these subjective reviews from news or feature stories. And talking about briefs, the maximum length is 13 lines. The size of headlines depends on the number of lines in a text, and it shouldn't be mixed with one-column articles. The sixth section is layout with widgets. There are three types of scenarios. One picture scenarios means there is a picture that's large enough to dominate a page. Among three types, hens and chicken scenario is the most popular. Hen means a big dominant widget on the page. You can see it from the example. The picture on the top of the page is hen, while the picture at the bottom is chicken, which is a combining widget in smaller size and a different format. The third type is called magical triangle. In order to create good contrast, it uses three widgets that are in different size and formats. But one thing is to address is that all of them should be in different size and formats, otherwise it can't work well in one page. In the example, photo 2 and 3 are in the same size and format, so it can't create good contrast. On the same page, we can see there are two cutouts. One is in the top of the page and the other is in the middle. There are three purposes of placing cutouts in the newspaper: as teasers, as a key widget, or as an additional widget that completes magical triangle or hen and chickens. The seventh section is graphics, illustrations, and collages. Voida Zeton chooses to purchase graphics, illustrations, and collages from freelance graphic artists and news agencies, or create those by the technical or reproduction department of the press itself. Then I will talk about breaking up text. In order to create an easy way for readers to navigate, the newspaper used deadline, topic, subtitles, quotations, and logo to break up text, and each of them has required placement with appropriate typography. And on the right side, there are some examples. The style book also introduces a special type of new short form of storytelling for Voida Zeton, people at one glance. This section includes 2 to 4 briefs about famous or interesting people, and is categorized by topic in caps and green color, sand color background, 1 to 2 lines of headline with Franklin bold, but copy in Franklin, and 1 to 2 cutout pictures of people. And finally, I will ask 2 questions. The first question is: picture before the text under the headline are not commonly used when designing the newspaper. Is it true or false? Yes, the right answer is true. And the second question is: using 3 widgets in the same size and format can work well in a page. Is it true or false? Yes, the right answer is false. That's all. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Zhao Zequn. Today my topic is review of 30 US newspapers. In other words, I will analyze the US newspaper from the page, rely on the principle of modern newspaper design that presents. It's hard to analyze all 30 US newspapers, so I select 5 newspapers on July 10 to analyze. They are Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Boston Globe, and the Star Legals. So first, for the layout, it's obvious that all parts of the article of the 5 newspaper front page were laid down in form of rectangle. Second, according to the relevance and the importance of each story, every multi-story page must have opening or lead story that is obvious to the reader at first glance. In the 5 newspapers, we can see that the lead story of them are about Kavanaugh was picked for high courts. The headline is Kavanaugh picked for high court in Los Angeles Times. In the Washington Post is Trump picks Kavanaugh for high court, and in New York Times is former Bush and is Trump picked for courts, and in Boston Globe is Trump choose Kavanaugh, and in Star Legal is Supreme Court battle begin. It is the most important news in the day, so the bigger size of typeface and overstrinking was used to attract people when they first look at the page. In New York Times, including overstring types is also used, and between 2 stories is a white space or called air is used to separate the articles or to create more background on a page. So for the color, we can see that all the 5 front page are colorful. Actually, unlike European newspaper, is 4 color in most cases. In addition to the front page on the last page, the section front and the center fold are also colorful in US newspapers. Take the Washington Post as the examples. The left one is its front page is colorful, and the right one is the next page is black and white, and then the left one is a mature section front, and the right one is the last page. So they are colorful, but as what I say is in most cases, this is its opinion section front page is black and white. So then it's the vision part. Almost each story combines the texture with photos, except several short news layouts with visuals. There are 3 main principles: the one picture scenery, the hen and the chicken scenery, and the magical triangles. So the lead-in is interest the content of an article in a short form, offer an introduction to the text, and motivated readers to read further. The rectangles represent it. Pull out court means a court, pensioned court or taxi from the story that is particularly interesting and might draw readers into the stories. And the green ones not clear. The green rectangle represents it, and the subtitle means 2 or 3 words headline sprinkled throughout the text of an article. The blue rectangles represent it. So in conclusions, the US newspapers mainly follow the principle of modern newspaper design. That's all. Thank you.
One of the things that was pointed out by the textbook also, I think, I'm not sure where it came from, but anyway, it did make note that European newspapers end up using more color than American newspapers. The inside pages of American newspapers are normally black and white. I think, however, the American newspapers have a bigger emphasis on deadlines. As I said, when I was working with the Daily, we would work, the editors would work until after midnight. I would stay until about 2 in the morning to be the last editor out. And then the paper would be on the doorstep. We have home circulation. I think I'm not sure if all the European newspapers deliver as much home circulation as we do in America. About 90% of our circulation is on the doorstep for the typical daily paper in America. So because of that need to print a complete newspaper, like again at the one I was at, we printed about 50,000 newspapers. So the press didn't really get going until about 1:30. And then it still had to, at that point, put them into, it had to insert. So once it's printed, then there very frequently inserts have to be put into the newspaper, and that's done also in a semi-automated fashion. But that also takes another hour or so to do that. They can do it fairly quickly. They have various mechanical inserters that I could show you a picture of, and I don't think I have in this class. But anyway, so they have to very quickly do the inserts. On Sunday, that part they have to do in advance because there's just too many inserts. There may be, on a typical Sunday, possibly 30 inserts or so. And so they pre-print one section and put all the inserts in that section before Sunday, or before Saturday, because it's just too much to handle at one time. But anyway, so once it gets to the trucks have to go out in a kind of a circumference of about 50 miles or 60 miles in every direction. Those then throw the bundles of paper out at the home of typically kids are the ones that typically do the home delivery. Young teenagers, 12 years old, 10 years old. Some adults do it, but it doesn't pay very well by the hour. So not very many adults do. They do the delivery to the home delivery kids, the kids that typically go house to house. And then it gets delivered. They're required to have it on the doorstep, like I said, by 7 o'clock, and many of them have it out sooner than that. So this whole situation is such they have to have, everything has to be speeded up. Everything has to be expedited to do that. And one of the things that would slow it up is to have a big enough press to do color on all the pages. It's expensive and more time consuming to try to put color on every page. Well, I think it would probably back up to not that the American papers are cheap, but they have a whole different type of approach in the delivery system and everything that requires they have to put out these newspapers very, very fast. Even if you, as I said, the newspaper I was at had 50,000 circulation, its press was actually rated at the capability of printing 70,000 an hour. In other words, that's more than 1,000 newspapers every minute. A machine like that is amazingly complicated. And they can't even though it's rated at a top speed of 70,000 per hour, they have to stop and change the paper every so often. And so in a particular day, they might use 24 of these half-ton rolls of paper and they have enough units. I think they would end up having to change each press unit maybe in some cases twice in a night. And so they have to stop and reload the paper, make sure that everything's still lined up again. So they probably throw away some more paper after they reload throw away some printed copies, making sure that the color's all lined up again. Otherwise it looks fuzzy and ugly. And then they get started again. So in reality, while they don't really get going full speed until about 2, it's probably going to take them, till 3:30 or 4 to get done with their printing, with all their stops, and that's the other complication. Is every machine doesn't run out of paper at the same time for a variety of reasons. So it gets more complicated than that. So anyway, I think just the whole operation of a newspaper in America is maybe just enough different that they don't feel like they can have the luxury of putting color in every page. Anyway, that's also, as I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention in this tutorial, but at the newspaper I had, I think there were like 4 or 5 out of 50 that were actually married. It was kind of a young person's job because they had no family life other than the newspaper was their family. And it was hard on those of us that did have family. It was interesting that he took a look at a more recent newspaper. I had downloaded, the 30 newspapers and made those available. I'm not sure if he understood that or not, but anyway, it's better to have a more recent version. It's also interesting. We've been talking now in this class. I know I've been trying to explain that we have to use the same style of layout, the same as we use the same style of news writing. We use the same style of layout. So one person can't be boxing and somebody else doing lines all over the place, or it doesn't look like it's the same newspaper. And we are putting out a newspaper, probably not the broadsheet, but probably with the tabloid. Certainly with the tabloid, we're going to actually put them all together and publish them, not in print, but published electronically online. So if somebody is using one style and somebody else using another style, you see that the newspapers have quite a few different approaches to what they consider is good layout. And they are tending to go more with lines than boxes, I admit that. And I think some of them go too far, putting too many lines. But regardless, we're going to use, partly because some people seem to consider it more difficult, really shouldn't be, to use boxes than lines. That's a good thing for you to learn how to do boxes, learn how to inset the text, and so forth. So anyway, that's our style. One of the things I noticed was that, for example, the Los Angeles Times is not modular. That surprised me. They used to be. I think the example I have that I downloaded from a few years ago is modular. But it's not modular in right here. See, the package here is not modular in that this goes up into that. To be modular, it should all even out in here someplace. So to be modular, they probably would have put the story over in the first 2 columns and wrap some of the story underneath the photo to make it come out even. But it's more of a backwards P or something if you look at that. It's not modular. That top story is not modular. The New York Times is somewhat famous for not being modular, and yet in this example, they are modular. They kind of break other rules that I think is kind of ugly. Here they have 3 stories all about the selection in court, They put two of them right next to each other, which I think is unnecessary. This one here should go over here, and move the picture over one column, and break up those two stories next to each other. That's kind of ugly to me. We notice that they're one of them that does use all caps occasionally. Again, there's just one on the page, but they did use all caps for what they consider the most important story. Everything else is sentence capitalization. Some of you are using title capitalization, and that's what you do not see here. Again, let me emphasize, you do not see title capitalization in modern newspapers. Title capitalization being like you may have been taught in school is how you title a book, where every major word is capitalized. You don't capitalize a and the, you don't capitalize prepositions with, things like that, with and other prepositions of that nature. But you do capitalize the main words. That's title capitalization that we do not use. You might say, do not misunderstand my English. We do not use title capitalization. Except for an occasional all cap, everything here is sentence capitalization. How you would capitalize if you're writing a sentence. Some of you got docked for doing that, maybe because you don't understand me, I don't know. But you did not do what I told you to do. These other papers, we can see the Star Ledger has all caps for the main story. That's, again, occasionally you'll see all caps. But again, no title capitalization. Don't use title capitalization. It's not the norm anymore. It used to be. It used to be the norm. And in fact, I resisted going to sentence capitalization. We're talking about in America 40 years ago when I was resisting. This is a 40-year reality that we no longer use title capitalization. We use sentence capitalization. These ones are modular. So the only one that broke modular, interesting enough, was the LA Times. It used to be modular. And I don't know if they do all the time, but this time they did break modular. We do see that some of the papers are going to fewer stories in the front, which is interesting. The norm is still to have more of them. So this one had 1, 2, 3, 4 in the front. What did the other ones have? This one only has 3 on the front. Like our rule was 6 on the front to have more headlines. Now let's go back to the other 3 that they have. So the Times have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the front, plus in briefs. They're not. I guess they're not just briefs. They look like they are promos, more like promos. They're not as colorful as the promos we used to use. But there are promos that are promoting stories on this side. Washington Post has 4 full stories and lots of they're kind of dark. I think it looks like to me that they are all referring to stories on the inside. So they're trying to give you a brief synopsis of what's on the inside with lots of possibilities. I think. As I can see, it's saying here, they're going to lots of briefs, but with, I think, jumps into the inside pages to try to go inside. And so the Times has 5 stories in the front. The Times usually does tend to be a little bit gray. They are using more bigger and more art now than they used to. We also see there's only an ad in the front because they're going broke, so they sell ads any way they can. So that's something I hate, having ads in the front. When I sold ads in the front, I did, because I was also going broke. Is I would sell a streamer across the bottom so that, it would be like this much would be at the bottom would be an ad. That's the only format I would sell. And then, so the news hole would all be modular. That I could handle that, selling an ad in the front if it left the news space modular. But I hate that kind of an ad on the front. It disrupts the entire layout of the news page. I hate that. Okay, going back, one more look at the other two. So basically, they're doing what I did. They're filling that at the bottom, but you can't go across the whole bottom so that it doesn't disrupt the rest. This is extremely unusual and is not the norm in that they have only 3 stories, and then they just have some sections down here. That is very much against the trend to have that little bit on the front. So you're seeing that while they seem to have fewer, still it's not, the norm is, I would say, 4 or 5 stories now. Plus, I would say it's more the norm to have some briefs and plugging the inside story than it is not to. I don't think that's a very smart layout, because the point of this is to try to get people to read the rest of the paper. So they're giving you kind of a brief preview of 1, 2, looks like, again, I can't read the detail, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at least 8 or so stories they're previewing for you and saying, here, go to this page and read this story. So that's the idea of trying to, we used to go to more detail, more fancier, more graphic promos than that. That's kind of, but if they may be right. I could see the argument for doing it that way. Putting the promos, see, none of them put a promo up at the top anymore. You notice in one of the European ones, they were, in the first presentation, they had promos at the top and one was a cutout and so forth. That was the way we used to do it, have promos, maybe have 3 promos across the top and they would have art with them that you can cut out and help make a pretty design, to make it more graphic. It took a little bit of effort to do a nice promo at the top. You did like to use cutouts and stuff for that. And I see none of these papers are using promos at the top anymore, which is interesting. But at least 3 of the 5 are using promos of this nature, more of the preview, more detail, and they're not taking much time to do it. Again, we may be seeing the effect of employee layoffs. Because they're all going broke financially, they may be trying to make their product a little bit, make it faster with fewer editors and so forth. Because putting at the top, like I said, you end up trying to make it look artistic. You can cut out and stuff, and all takes time. This doesn't take much time. Other than decide what we're going to do, the wire editor can throw it together, or news editor or somebody. Here they're using some photos in here in this version, but they're just square photos and nothing very difficult to throw in there. So that's not too. I guess in a way I do give them credit for making their little digest here come out even with the ad. So then the rest of the stories are modular space. I guess if I had to do it, I guess that's one way to do it. I still prefer having portions that go wide. We do see another thing that breaks both the textbook and my rule, and that is one column. Our pronouncement is 3 to 4 lines. This is 5. You can use your own judgment whether you think that looks good or not. I used to go as many as 5, and then I think that when I read the textbook that said 4 should be the limit, I started looking at that, and I decided that they were right. 4 looks better than 5. And so that's when I became an advocate of limiting it to 4 lines. And that's, again, if you are in a position to make that decision, you have to make that decision. But I think 5 is too many. I think 4 looks good. 3 looks okay. Some of you tried to only have 2 lines on your, some of your one-column stories only have 2 lines. That's too few, I think. I agree that that's too few, and that's what the textbook that we've been referring to, the layout textbook that has copies in the library, says that 2 is too few, 3 is okay, 4 is okay, 5 is too many. I happen to agree with that now. I didn't always. I didn't think about it. I just did it. I usually did have a sense that 2 was not enough graphically. I never thought, and I very rarely went to 5. I went to 5 when I felt I had something to say, I wanted to say it. So I didn't go to 5 very often. But then once I started looking at textbook, I started agreeing. 5 too many, 4 is nice, 3 is nice, use confused. Just graphically, just from the graphic perspective. You see the New York Times uses quite small headlines compared to the other newspapers. I would say these are a little bit more normal. Also, some of you did not. There were a few that had nice pages that didn't use any subtitle or subheadlines at all, any summaries at all. You again see how many of these, not all of them, but most of them do have subheadline. This looks like a summary sentence here, subheadline here, subheadline there, subheadline up there. This one does not. So they have 5, and you would see, you're going to have a 5-deck headline, adding some subheadline would make that look, that'd be ridiculous. Half of your story here would be a headline. You don't want that. So that would be overkill. You can understand that. This is very odd. I don't particularly like it. Putting the headline here below the picture and off the side, leaving extra white space unnecessarily there. I don't particularly like that layout. Anyway, going back to headline, subheadline. Well, this is basically a subheadline of the top. So I mean, basically you have, again, this is an example of having sidebars. In this case, they have 2 sidebars. So they have a main story and 2 sidebars. Making one package, one modular package. This is more the norm. This one is not the norm. Here in the sense that they have the backward P organization that's not modular. And this, I originally thought this story must relate to the Kavanaugh story, and it doesn't. It's totally different. So that makes that the Kavanaugh package not modular. So this one has 3 stories and it's still modular. So you have the big headline over the top, your picture in the middle, breaking it up. You have your main story. I don't know. In this case, it may be hard to say which is the main story. I have to read them just to make that judgment. But typically, the main story would probably start over on the left. So you have a story with the subheadline here, story with the subheadline here, story with the subheadline there. This one does not use a subheadline. It has a blurb, and here a blurb, and here a blurb. So, and those they're going with. Although I'm not sure. Again, we don't get a real clear. This may be a subheadline also. Actually, I don't see a period at the end. I don't see. This one looks like it may be actually be a summary sentence. I can't tell if it has. But these 2 look more like subheadlines, but just positioned not in the first column. A little bit oddly, not in the first column. So you could kind of call them blurbs, even though they look like they're being written in headlineese. But I'm not sure. I can't read them well enough to know exactly. Maybe I can over here, but I don't think so. Yeah, that's too small. Anyway, again, the New York Times headlines are smaller. They're not as graphically powerful as some of the other papers that you see. The Times, well, not modular, at least this edition is not modular. They have their headlines are much bigger than the New York Times. And a little bit bigger than you kind of see it in, smallest, smaller, bigger. I mean, smallest, a little bit bigger, the biggest is over here. If you're putting it out for people to look at and decide whether they want to buy it or not, if you are using newsstands, and there are actually putting out more newsstands now because their subscription base is falling, along with their advertising revenues. So all of the newspapers are trying to sell more from newsstands and grocery stores and stuff. This one, you're going to see the headlines a little better. Obviously, that's for graphic reasons, for quick readership reasons. Somebody looking at a newsstand, do I want to buy this or not? I think this is more appealing than that, and certainly than that. New York Times has always been backwards in their layout. especially the front page. Sometimes they're inside, their other sections are good. They may even win prizes with their other sections, but their front page is always old style. Not as old now as it used to be. And then going back to these other two, again, comparing them. So this is not as much big as the LA Times, but big, fairly big. I think all of these look like this is probably 40 point, probably close to 36. And this is probably a little bit bigger than 36. This is probably getting close to 40 here. This might be 48. So they're using pretty big headlines for the front of their broadsheet. Even their subheadline up here is at least 36. But when you start figuring half the size of the main headline, that main headline is at least 90. That's bigger than 70. So I'd say that's at least 90 points. So the subheadline is somewhere close to about half the size of the main headline point size. So it is interesting to look at them. As I said, I have to admit they're going to lines. There's very few that use the style that we have, of boxes instead of lines. Nonetheless, this when we started off with boxes, I want to see that you know how to do a box. So we're going to use boxes still. And it's not really that much harder. For example, on this page, what would have to be boxed? Actually, one thing would have to be boxed on this page. This story here would be boxed. That's it. There's no need, by the rules I set up in our style sheet, there's one story box. That's it. And so is that really harder than the lines? I don't think so. And this one here, they're going to meet the line. Well, I guess this one here. This one would be boxed. Well, one of these would be boxed. Actually, I would probably go with this one that has the art. I'd probably box the main story. But that was, so there's one box on that page. Looking at the other three again, from that perspective, again, this one's not modular. So I would redesign this one to make it modular. It's not confusing. I mean, one of the main things about modular is make sure things aren't confusing. And so the spirit of the law is kept here. There's nothing confusing. So in that sense, why argue about it? It's not modular, but it's not confusing. And that's true. Except I found myself trying to make this into a sidebar of that story. I guess it was confusing to me. I'm so used to modular that I'm saying, how does the power outage have to do with Kavanaugh? Because it looked like it's a sidebar. Right underneath the Kavanaugh photo, yes, they have a black line, but the black line, they have lines every place, so you don't know when to take a black line seriously. They have line. So I think, it did confuse me. So I guess by definition that means it's confusing to have a non-modular story in there. But looking at what they do have, this page is kind of chaotic. I've never seen the Times look this chaotic before. Maybe they need lines every place because it's so chaotic. But if, in some ways, especially because they broke modular, if this story was boxed, that broken modular, you can't box a non-modular story. You can't box it. So if you're going to have non-modular, you can't box that story. So this would be the obvious story to box. And if it was the only one boxed, then it wouldn't be so confusing. But because they have lines every place, I thought this had to do with Kavanaugh. It's non-modular, and there's lines every place. So what does a line mean? It doesn't mean anything. Once you have too many, it's not enough. So in this page, I would just by the way they've thrown it together, which I think is not a good layout. They have a gutter coming all the way down, except for the top headline. I don't know. To me, this looks chaotic. I don't like it. I would have to box this one in order to make sure that trying to make sure they didn't confuse because of the non-modularity. But I would actually change it to start with. The story would be over here. The photo would push to the right, and the story would wrap around and it would stay modular. It's not that hard to make this story modular. There's plenty of text that if it traded the text over here and the picture there, then the text could run underneath the photo enough that it would become modular. Then we wouldn't have the confusion. And then, once you did that, then this could maybe also go, as long as it's taking a lot of space anyway, it could go 6 columns underneath it. Or this could be the one that was boxed. This one go up next to it wherever it ended up. Be like down in here. This would come down a little bit. This would come up next to it. This would be boxed. And then you'd have to decide here. You'd have to box one of them. And trying to get boxes away from each other would be kind of difficult with that layout. But I don't see. I don't really like that, but that's where we'd end up. We have to do something. I mean, the other way would be to make this one go across 4 columns, this one here go across 4, and then one go across 4 across the bottom. Make it very horizontal, except for the 2 column along the side. Now, there's a way to, as I said before, once you set your layout style, it then starts to control how you lay out. And so if I was redoing this, I'd redo it dramatically to stay within my style, and I actually could make it so there's only one column. But you'd have to start from scratch, basically. It's too chaotic the way it is now. Not harder to do it my way. Just, whatever your layout is, whatever your layout style is, it controls you to some degree. Anyway, I think we probably got to death. So. Okay, but that was, I appreciate that he did use modern front pages that we could take a look at and they do, all the newspapers have changed since I did my 30 downloads. They're looking somewhat different. So it is an indication I need to, if I'm going to have 30 downloads, I should redo it. It's been, I don't know, 5 or 6 years since I did those 30 downloads. These look somewhat different. They're changing. Each newspaper looks a little bit different. They've changed editors. Things have happened. Okay, well, I told you I'd give you some time today to work on your pages. I will do that. If anybody has anything that they want to show me, I will be up here at this desk up here where you can bring me your computer or whatever, or have me come, if you're using a desktop, have me come to you and give you a quick review of your tabloid. If anybody's at that point yet, you should be getting started. Well, it was with your broadsheet. It was by these tutorials that I was starting to give people some impression of what they could do better. And so that's, for this assignment, that's today. So I will stop this here. And the tabloid, again, you're going 4 columns, not 6. Broadsheet, you have enough. With a broadsheet, you were 16 inches wide. With the tabloid, you're only 11 inches wide. So you do not have room for six columns. You have room for 4 columns. And so the broadsheet will be 4 columns. And it will be, after you take off the margins, it's really 16 inches deep. And it's really then only 10 inches wide of actual space. So actual layout space is 10 wide, 16 deep. 160, if you multiply, that's 160 column inches. Most of your stories are around 30 without photos. And so if you have 5 stories of 30 inches each, that's 150 inches of potential text, and you only have 160 on your front page. But that doesn't count any photos. So you start putting in photos, and headlines doesn't count headlines. So as you start putting stuff in, it comes out rather easily to fill that page. You do have to use your photos big enough, and so you have to do some. You should do some calculation. That's one reason why it's beneficial to think of how many, maybe even just on a. In fact, in the past, I maybe should make it available to you. I don't think I have. I made a page layout in Excel, put in lines and everything, so that you could see every inch. So you could see 4 columns, 16 inches coming down after the margins. And so you could see those 160 inches on your front page and 160 on your page 2. And so you can visually see them by laying them out in Excel and printing that out. And then if you look at the Excel list that I showed you of which stories you had and how many photos you had and how many column inches it had, each column inch is one of those squares. When you count 4 columns wide, 16 inches deep, you've got, well, actually, I'm not even doing that in math right. It's 4 columns. You multiply the 16 by 4, not by 10. Even though it's 10 inches, that's not what we're counting. We're counting 4 columns. So it's 4 columns times 16. Well, 4 columns times 16 is 64 column inches. So that's all the number of column inches you have on your front page or on your page 2. 64, not 100. As I said the first time, that was wrong. That'd be square inches, not column inches. So you have 64 column inches on the front, 64 on the page 2. Your typical team has about somewhere close to 150 inches, column inches of text. So in other words, you have more column inches of text than you have column inches in 2 tabloids. So if you have more column inches of text than you have, that means you're going to be cutting stories. So you should not have problem filling 2 pages of tabloid. You should not have a problem doing that. And so if you get down the bottom, you're just cutting some stories of page 2. You're just cutting them. But if you happen to not calculate right, and you end up at the bottom of page 2 and you do not fill the space, and that's where you start using pull-out quotes. You start reconsidering what photos you have that you can use. I would try to start the camera photos, reserve those for the bottom of page 2. They make me crazy. So anyway, it's not really, considering how many column inches you have of text compared to how many column inches available on 2 tabloids, filling page 2 should not be hard. And a little bit of that, I will send out a layout sheet just so you can maybe look at the column inches in our list that I gave each team and look at a blank page that you can just, if you wanted to, you could print out and just figure in, okay, here's a headline, here's column inches, there's the photo, and you will be able to figure out fairly quickly how to fill your 2 pages before you start, before you go into Quark Express, if you haven't done that yet. And so there's no reason for you to get to the bottom of page 2 and wonder, oh no, I haven't filled up enough space. If that's the case, you haven't filled your space properly before that, because you have plenty of text, plenty of photos to fill 2 pages. So making it come out at the bottom isn't that hard. You're going to be cutting some stories probably, but you should have enough story in to call it good enough. If people have written in inverted pyramid, then you just cut at the bottom. And I'm not going to be reading that closely to see if you maybe should have left something at the bottom, brought up to the front. I'm not reading the stories that carefully. So as long as it sounds like it ends okay and what's there is okay, I'm not going to fuss about it. But I will upload another version. Any other questions? I think it is important, however, that I give you some feedback on your broadsheet, and I haven't. Some of you have gotten feedback, some of you haven't. It automatically sends you the feedback once I'm done, and I'm not even halfway done. So I think that's important for me to finish up as quickly as possible, and that's hard.